When Margaret Sullivan opened that porcelain doll's head in her attic on a cold November morning, she had no idea she was about to solve a mystery that had haunted 3 generations of her family. Inside that Victorian doll, sealed for 30 years, was a secret so devastating it would finally bring peace to a mother who never stopped searching, and tear apart everything Margaret thought she knew about her own childhood. What she found wasn't just a clue, it was the truth. And the truth was hiding in plain sight all along. If this story moves you, if it breaks your heart the way it broke mine researching it, please hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who believes in never giving up. Because this isn't just a story about finding answers. It's about the love that refuses to die, even after 30 years of silence. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. November 14th, 2023, Willow Creek, Pennsylvania. Margaret Sullivan was 62 years old when she finally decided to clean out her late mother's attic. Her mother, Dorothy, had passed away 3 months earlier, and Margaret had been avoiding this task. Not because she was lazy, but because that attic held memories she wasn't ready to face. The house on Maple Street had been in their family since 1952. 3 generations had lived there. 3 generations had stored their secrets in that cramped, dusty space beneath the rafters. Margaret's daughter, Amy, was helping her that day. They'd been sorting through boxes for hours, old photo albums, Christmas decorations from the 1970s, her grandfather's war medals, normal family artifacts. And then Amy found it. "Mom," Amy called out from the corner near the old steamer trunk, "what's this?" The doll was exquisite. Even covered in decades of dust, you could see it had once been extraordinary. Porcelain face, hand-painted features, elaborate Victorian clothing in deep burgundy velvet, now faded and moth-eaten. The kind of doll wealthy families pass down as heirlooms. But there was something odd about it. The head was sealed with wax around the neck joint, deliberately sealed. Someone had taken great care to ensure that head never came off. "I remember this," Margaret whispered, taking the doll from her daughter's hands. Her fingers trembled. "Grammy Dorothy kept this in her bedroom when I was little. She never let me touch it. She said it was special, that it was keeping something safe." Amy found a butter knife. Carefully, so carefully, Margaret began to work the blade around the sealed neck joint. The wax was old, brittle. It cracked and fell away in yellowish chunks. "Mom, maybe we shouldn't," Amy started. But Margaret was already twisting the doll's head. It resisted at first, then suddenly gave way with a soft pop. What tumbled out onto the attic floor made both women gasp. Photographs. Old, faded photographs. Newspaper clippings, yellowed with age. And folded letters, the paper so thin it was almost translucent. But it was the photograph on top that made Margaret's knees buckle. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, with blonde braids and a gap-toothed smile. She was holding a stuffed rabbit. Behind her, you could see part of a carnival, bright lights, a Ferris wheel. Margaret knew that carnival, the county fair. It came to Willow Creek every September. And written on the back of the photograph, in handwriting Margaret recognized as her grandmother's, "Emma, September 1993, last day." "Oh my God! Oh my God! Emmy!" Amy looked confused. "Who's Emmy?"
Margaret slowly sank to the floor, photographs spilling from her shaking hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "My cousin, Emma Jean Morrison. She disappeared when I was 12 years old. She was 8 and never found her. And I haven't thought about her in 30 years." September 12th, 1993. It was the last day of the Harvest County Fair. The kind of warm September evening where summer refuses to let go, where the air smells like fried dough and caramel apples, where children's laughter mixes with carnival music and creates pure magic. 12-year-old Margaret had been so excited. Her cousin, Emmy, everyone called her Emmy, was visiting from Ohio. Emmy's mother, Linda Morrison, was Dorothy's younger sister. The families didn't see each other often, maybe twice a year if they were lucky. Emmy was special. That's what everyone said. She had a light about her. One of those kids who made adults smile just by walking into a room. She collected rocks, believed in fairies, and had a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Buttons that went everywhere with her. The fair was packed that night, Margaret had told the police in 1993. Everyone from town was there. Emmy wanted to ride the Ferris wheel. She'd been talking about it all day. Margaret's mother, Dorothy, and Aunt Linda were standing near the ring toss game, chatting while keeping an eye on the girls. Or so they thought. Emmy saw the face painting booth. She wanted to be a butterfly. I told her I'd wait by the Ferris wheel. It was just 20 feet away. I could see her get in line. Margaret had turned to watch a boy from her school, she couldn't even remember his name now, attempt to win a giant teddy bear. When she turned back, the face painting line had moved forward. Emmy wasn't in it. "At first, I wasn't worried," Margaret said, her voice cracking with old guilt. "I figured she'd gone to the bathroom or found Mom and Aunt Linda. I walked around for maybe 5 minutes looking, then 10 minutes. Then I started to panic." By the time Margaret found her mother and aunt, 15 minutes had passed. By the time they called for Emmy over the loudspeaker, it had been 20 minutes. By the time they called the police, Emmy had been gone for 40 minutes. By sunrise the next morning, when volunteers had searched every inch of the fairgrounds and the surrounding woods, one thing was terrifyingly clear. Emma Jean Morrison had vanished. The investigation was immediate and extensive. The FBI got involved within 24 hours because of possible abduction across state lines. They interviewed everyone at the fair, set up roadblocks, dragged the lake. The media descended on Willow Creek like a swarm. Emmy's face was on every news station from Pittsburgh to Cleveland. Her school photo, the one with the gap-toothed smile and blonde braids, became iconic. Everyone in Pennsylvania knew that face, but no one had seen anything. As if she had simply stepped through a crack in reality and disappeared. The theories multiplied. A drifter who'd been at the fair, a stranger in a van, a predator who'd been watching and waiting. The FBI had suspects. They questioned people. Some they questioned for days. But there was never enough evidence. Never a body, never a witness who saw the right thing at the right time. Margaret's Aunt Linda became a shell of herself. She did interview after interview, begging for her daughter's return. She never left Ohio, never left the house where Emmy had grown up, convinced her daughter would find her way home. Margaret's grandmother, Dorothy, had been different. She became obsessed. She kept newspaper clippings. She called the FBI twice a week for updates. She couldn't let it go. "Grammy never believed Emmy was dead," Margaret said, tears streaming down her face as she looked through the photographs. She used to say, "I'd know. I'd feel it in my bones if that baby was gone. She kept looking for 20 more years, even when everyone else had moved on. The guilt nearly killed our family. Mom blamed herself for not watching more carefully. Aunt Linda blamed everyone. Grammy blamed God. And me? Margaret's voice broke completely. I blamed myself for turning away, for those 5 minutes when I wasn't paying attention. I was 12 years old and I lost my baby cousin. I carried that for 30 years. We all did. But Dorothy had done something else, something no one knew about. She'd kept searching, and she'd hidden what she found in a Victorian doll's head, sealed with wax.
Dear Grammy Dorothy,
waiting.
I hope you get this.
Back in the attic,
The lady said
Margaret's
she'd mail it,
hands
but I don't know if
shook
she
as
will.
she unfolded
I'm
the
okay,
first letter.
but I can't come home
The
yet.
handwriting was
I'm
neat.
sorry I left. I was scared. Please tell Mommy I love her. Tell Margaret it wasn't her fault. I saw something I shouldn't have seen. That's why I ran. I'm with someone safe. I promise I'm okay. Love, Emmy. The letter was dated September 30th, 1993, 18 days after Emmy disappeared. Margaret couldn't breathe. She wrote letters? There were 7 of them, all in Emmy's handwriting, all dated over a 3-month period in late 1993. Each letter said essentially the same thing. Emmy was safe. She couldn't come home. She was scared, and she was with someone who was protecting her. But it was the last letter, dated December 19th, 1993, that changed everything. Dear Grammy, this is the last letter I can send. The lady is taking me somewhere far away tomorrow. She says it's the only way to keep me safe forever. I wish I could tell you where, but she says I can't. I saw him, Grammy, at the fair. I saw him do something terrible to that other girl. She was behind the dumpster by the game booths. He saw me see him. He started coming toward me and I ran. I ran and found the lady, and she helped me hide. She said if I go home, he'll find me because he's someone important, someone people trust. She's taking me where he can't find me. I'm sorry I can't come home. I love you so much. Give Mr. Buttons to Margaret. Tell her I'll think about her every day. Your Emmy. Margaret's hands were shaking so violently she could barely hold the paper. She saw something, Amy whispered. She saw someone hurt another girl, and she ran. But Margaret was already pulling out the newspaper clippings with frantic hands. The first one was dated September 14th, 1993, 2 days after Emmy disappeared. Body of teenage girl found near fairgrounds. The article described how a 16-year-old girl named Rachel Price had been found dead behind the equipment shed at the fairgrounds. She'd been reported missing by her friends during the fair. Police initially thought she'd wandered off. She'd been strangled. The investigation into Rachel Price's death, Margaret read aloud, her voice hollow, has yielded no suspects. Police are asking anyone who was at the fair on September 12th to come forward with information. There were more articles, months of them. The investigation went cold. They never found Rachel's killer, because Emmy was the only witness, and Emmy had vanished. Someone helped her, Emmy said slowly. This lady Emmy kept mentioning. She got these letters to your grandmother somehow. Margaret nodded, already sifting through more papers. And then she found it. A note. Different handwriting. Adult. Precise. Dorothy, I found your granddaughter hiding in my car at the fairground parking lot, terrified. She told me what she saw. She described the man. I recognized him from her description. I knew if she came forward, she'd be in danger. He's protected by this town, so I'm protecting her instead. I'm taking her somewhere safe, somewhere he'll never find her. I'll send these letters so you know she's alive, but you can't tell anyone. Not the police, not your family. If you do, he'll find out. He has people everywhere. When the time is right, when she's old enough and far enough away, I'll make sure she contacts you herself. But for now, let everyone believe she's gone.
It's the only way to keep her alive. She's safe with me. I promise you this on my own children's lives. Burn this note. A mother who understands." Margaret pressed the note to her chest, tears streaming freely now. "Grammy knew," she sobbed. "She knew Emmy was alive. For 30 years she knew, and she never told anyone." "Why?" Amy asked, crying too. "Why wouldn't she—" "Because she was protecting her," Margaret interrupted. "Don't you see? If Emmy came forward, if anyone knew she was alive, the killer would find her. Grammy kept this secret so Emmy could live." Margaret looked at her daughter, grief and realization washing over her face. "Grammy took this to her grave. She died 3 months ago without ever telling us. She protected Emmy's secret even at the cost of never seeing her again. That's love. That's what real love looked like." Margaret made a decision that day in the attic. She was going to find Emmy. "I know this sounds crazy, but my grandmother had evidence that my cousin didn't just disappear. She was taken by someone trying to protect her. She witnessed a murder." Special Agent David Park had been skeptical at first. The Emmy Morrison case was ancient history. Cold cases rarely got solved after 30 years. But when Margaret sent him photographs of the letters, everything changed. "The Rachel Price murder was never solved," Agent Park explained during their first meeting. "We had no witnesses, no forensic evidence that led anywhere. If Emmy saw the killer, this changes everything." They reopened both cases, Emmy's disappearance and Rachel's murder. They analyzed the letters, tried to trace them. The postmarks were from different cities: Cleveland, Columbus, Indianapolis. Whoever had been helping Emmy had been careful, moving around, covering tracks. But it was the description in Emmy's last letter that broke the case open. Someone important, someone people trust. Agent Park started pulling personnel files from the 1993 investigation. Fair workers, vendors, security.
He'd been one of the first responders when Emmy was reported missing. He'd helped search the fairgrounds. He'd interviewed witnesses.
James Brennan.
He'd been 28 years old in 1993. A rising star in the department. Everyone loved him. He was coaching Little League, volunteering at church. The kind of cop who knew everyone's name. He'd retired in 2010 after a distinguished career, moved to Florida. And when Agent Park started digging deeper, he found something else. In 2008, 15 years after Rachel Price's murder, there was a similar case in Willow Creek. A young woman, strangled, found near the park after a summer festival. The case went cold. Officer Brennan had been the lead investigator. "We brought him in for questioning last week," Agent Park told Margaret on the phone. "At first, he denied everything. But when we mentioned Emmy's letters, when we told him we knew she'd seen him," Agent Park paused. "He confessed. To Rachel Price, to the 2008 victim, to 2 others we didn't even know about. He's 70 years old now, Margaret. He said he'd been waiting for this day. Said he knew eventually someone would figure it out." Margaret had to sit down. "And Emmy? Did he know what happened to Emmy?" "He said he saw her that night, saw her run. He tried to follow her but lost her in the crowd. He looked for her for years. Every time there was a sighting, every time the case was mentioned, he was terrified she'd surface. But she never did. She stayed hidden. Whoever helped her saved her life. But the question remained. Where was Emmy? It took 6 more weeks. 6 weeks of investigating, of following decades-old trails, of dead ends and frustrations. And then Agent Park called. "We found her, Margaret. We found Emmy." Emily Waters. That was her name now. 40 years old. She lived in Vancouver, British Columbia. She was a veterinarian, married, 2 children. She'd been living in Canada since 1994, adopted by a woman named Patricia Waters, a social worker who'd been volunteering at the fair that night, who'd found a terrified 8-year-old hiding in her car, and who'd made a choice that would change both their lives. Patricia Waters had protected Emmy for 30 years.
She'd homeschooled her for 2 years while they moved around. Eventually, she'd arranged a legal adoption in Canada. New identity, new life, new start. And Emmy had thrived. Margaret stood in the Vancouver airport, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. Amy was beside her, squeezing her hand. And then she saw her. Emily, stood near the arrival gates. She looked nothing like the 8-year-old girl in the photographs, but her eyes. Those were Emmy's eyes. The same bright blue, the same light. They stared at each other for a long moment, and then Emily smiled. That gap-toothed smile was gone, but the warmth behind it remained. "Margaret?" she said softly. Margaret couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. Emily walked toward her, moving slowly, as if afraid Margaret might disappear too. "I've thought about you every single day," Emily whispered. "Every single day for 30 years. I wanted to come home so badly, but Patricia, my mom, she said it wasn't safe. She said we had to wait until we were sure." They were hugging now, both women sobbing, clinging to each other like lifelines. "Emmy, oh my God, Emmy, you're alive. You're really alive." "Patricia sent those letters," Emily said between sobs. "She mailed them from different cities so they couldn't be traced. Grammy Dorothy, did she get them?" "She did." Margaret pulled back to look at Emily's face. "She kept them secret. She protected you. She loved you so much, Emmy. She never stopped loving you." Emily's face crumpled. "I wanted to come home when I turned 18. Patricia said it still wasn't safe. We kept watching the news, waiting for them to catch him, but they never did. So we just kept living. I built a whole life up here. I have kids now, a husband. I'm happy. But there's always been this hole." "Your mother," Margaret said gently. "Aunt Linda. She never stopped looking. Emmy, she needs to know." Emily nodded, fresh tears spilling over. "I know. I want to see her. Is she okay?" Margaret thought about her aunt. Linda Morrison had passed away in 2015. Cancer. But really, she'd died of a broken heart years before that. She'd never known her daughter was alive. Margaret made a decision in that moment. A kind decision. A necessary lie. "She passed away 5 years ago," Margaret said softly. "But Emmy, she never gave up hope. She believed you were out there, and she was right." It was true enough. In the ways that mattered, it was true. Emily sobbed harder, grieving the mother she'd never see again, the reunion that would never happen. But she was alive. She'd survived. She'd built a beautiful life. And sometimes that has to be enough. They spent 3 days together in Vancouver. Margaret met Emmy's children, her second cousins. She met Emily's husband, a kind man who'd known her wife's secret and loved her anyway. She met Patricia Waters, the woman who'd risked everything to save a little girl. "I couldn't leave her," she said simply. "She was so scared, and when she told me what she'd seen, when I realized who she was describing, I knew she'd never be safe. So I chose her. I chose to protect her." "You gave up your whole life," Margaret said. Patricia smiled. "I gave her a life. That's not the same thing. And I got a daughter out of it. I got Emmy. That's more than enough." On the last day, as Margaret and Amy prepared to fly home, Emily gave her something. Mr. Buttons, the stuffed rabbit. Worn and faded, but still intact. "I kept him all these years," Emily said, "but I think Grammy Dorothy would want you to have him now. He's been waiting to come home." Margaret held the rabbit to her chest, remembering that last day at the fair, remembering Emmy's laughter, remembering the moment everything changed. "I'm sorry I looked away," Margaret whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you." Emily took her cousin's face in her hands, firm and sure. You were 12 years old. It wasn't your job to protect me. And Margaret, Emily's voice was fierce now, you did protect me. You kept my memory alive. You loved me even when you thought I was gone. That mattered. It always mattered. They hugged one last time. This time, it wasn't goodbye forever. This time, there would be phone calls and visits. This time, the hole could start to heal. As Margaret's plane lifted off, she looked down at Vancouver, thinking about the little girl who disappeared 30 years ago and the woman she'd become. Emmy had survived. Not just survived, she'd lived, really lived. And Dorothy had made that possible, by keeping the secret, by protecting Emmy even from beyond the grave. Officer James Brennan is currently serving 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He died in prison 6 months ago. He was 70 years old. Rachel Price's family finally got closure. So did the families of his other victims. Emily, continues to live in Vancouver. She started a foundation that helps protect children who witness crimes. She's turning her trauma into purpose. And Margaret? She visits her grandmother's grave every week now. She brings flowers. She tells Dorothy about finding Emmy, about the reunion, about the letters. You did it, Grammy. You kept her safe. You never gave up hope. The Victorian doll sits in Margaret's living room now. Empty. Its secret revealed. Its purpose fulfilled. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes love means keeping secrets. Sometimes love means protecting someone so fiercely that you carry the weight of their absence for 30 years just so they can live. Dorothy Sullivan knew that kind of love, and in the end, that love brought Emmy home.